Hey class, welcome back to day 2 here of week 4. Nice job yesterday with the IXL and the notes. It's looking pretty good, all right? So today we are actually going to do some factoring now to solve quadratic equations, right? So yesterday you guys learned about that zero product property, and today we're going to factor and then use that zero product property, all right? And because we are factoring, we are going to need this factors chart again, all right? So this factors chart is not going to go away, right? Because we are factoring, and this chapter has to do with factoring as well, all right? So hopefully you printed this out and didn't forget about it or lose it, all right? Because we're going to need to reference the factors chart today when we're factoring now to solve these quadratic equations, all right? So speaking of looking back, right, these are the two types of factoring we have done so far, right? The first type was with the GCF, right, the greatest common factor, right? And the factor with this, right, we listed out the factors, we found the greatest common factor, and then we factored it out, right? Our GCF went out here in front, right? And then we used our parentheses and figured out what goes back into our parentheses based on what our GCF was, right? Our GCF times our first term got us back to the original first term, and then our GCF times our second term got us back to the original problem. And if there was 3 terms, obviously, right, that would take us to 3 different terms. All right, and then the second type of factoring we did was these trinomials, right? The ax squared plus bx plus c, right? This is where we found the factors of that last term, or my c value, that added up to that middle term, or my b value, right? And here, right, our solution was a product of 2 binomials, right? This is where we had our 2 sets of parentheses with an x and another x. Right, so we're using those t-charts to list out our factors, all right? So these 2 skills are what we're going to use today, plus that zero product property, right? So this is going to kind of combine all these skills together here. All right, so let's do some examples here, right? So the first step we're going to see here, right? We're going to solve the following polynomial equations by factoring first and then using that zero product property. All right, so example 1, right? We have 2x squared plus 8x is equal to 0. All right, so this is one we're going to use our GCF for, right? So if we have these like little lines underneath, that means we're going to have to use our GCF and factor that first and then use that zero product property, right? If you recall, right, this 2x squared, right, this means I have an x and 1 times 2, right? Those are my factors of 2x squared. And then for 8x, right, we have x, and then we have 1 times 8, and then we have 2 times 4. All right, now that we listed out our factors, right, we find the greatest thing in common with these 2 terms, and that's going to be 2x, right? So my GCF here is 2x. So my GCF goes out in front, right? And now I got to fill in this parentheses with what's left over, right? How do I get back to my original problem? Well, 2's partner is just 1, right? So this is just 1 or 1x. So I have an extra x, right? So, and that makes sense. 2x times x is my 2x squared, all right? And to get back to 8x, well, 2x times what gives me back to 8x? Well, 2 times that, 4, right? Because 2 and 4 are the partners, just like 1 and 2 are the partners. All right, so 2x times 4 gives me that 8x. All right, so now that I factored it, I still have to solve, right? This is why this is equal to 0 here. All right, so the first part of this is factoring it. Now I need to solve to find my solutions. So that means I'm going to use that zero product property. All right, and that zero product property says that any 2 products that are multiplied together and equal to 0, I can just separate them and make them both equal to 0, right? That's either my apples here or my oranges here are equal to 0. All right, and now I'm just solving, right? Just like we did on that IXL assignment, right? Divide by 2, x is equal to 0. That is one of my solutions. And now here, my other solution is minus 4, x is equal to negative 4. And actually, you can kind of just ignore the solutions here, right? If we can just box up our answers or circle them, and then we don't have to worry about writing them back on the line. All right, let's look at the other side here, right? With example 2, we have 14x squared minus 21x is equal to 0. All right, again, we're going to start by listing out the factors, right? So we have x and x. We have 1 times 14 and we have 2 times 7. And then for 21x, right, we have an x, we have 1 times 21, and we have 3 times 7. Now we look at both of our terms and find out the greatest common factor is going to be a 7 for my numbers, and we both have an x in common. So therefore my GCF is 7x. Now that I find my GCF, right, I got to fill in the rest of this parentheses to figure out how to finish factoring this off, right? Well, 7's partner was 2, so that's going to go here. And then I have this extra x, so I have to bring that down here. Right? And then 7x times 2x gives me that 14x squared, right? That makes sense. And now the 7 and 3 are partners, so that means this 3 goes back in here, right? And I don't have any x's, so just a 3. All right, and now I factored it, but I still have to solve, right? Because I have to use that zero product property now, right? So I can say that 7x is equal to 0, or 2x plus 3 is equal to 0. All right, so here I'm going to divide by 7, and you get x is equal to 0. Here's my one solution. And then here I got subtract 3, 2x is equal to negative 3. I divide by 2, and x is equal to negative 3 over 2, right? Just leave your answers as an improper fraction. That's okay, right? If they don't divide evenly, just leave it as such. All right, so here I got 2 solutions. All right, so that's how you factor the first way with the GCF. All right, the second type of way we're going to solve these types of equations today is with these trinomials here, right? This is where we're going to use this chart to fill it out. All right, so example 3, we have x squared plus 8x plus 15 is equal to 0. Okay, so again, I want to find my factors of 15. Oop, almost wrote that on the wrong side. That add to 8. Right, factors my last term that add to my middle term. All right, so I'm going to list out my factors. We have 1 and 15, and we have 3 and 5. Right, I only have those 4 factors. All right, and these need to add to a positive 8. So it's going to be 3 and 5. Gives me that 8. So now that I know my factors, I can put them in my parentheses, right? X plus 3 times x plus 5 is equal to 0. All right, so again, I'm not done here, right? Because I have to solve now, right? If it was just factor, which we did in our last chapter, I would be done. But I need to solve now, all right? So I'm going to use that zero product property. And I'm going to say that x plus 3 is equal to 0, or x plus 5 is equal to 0. Right, again, with that zero product property, that means either this product or this product is equal to 0. So then I just set both of them equal to 0 and solve. So I subtract 3, and we get x is equal to negative 3. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, if you have not printed these out, hopefully print out the notes and follow along, right? This is week 4, so hopefully you've figured that out by now. And if not, right, hopefully you are writing these problems down as I'm talking, all right? So I did not mention that earlier, but yeah, write these problems down and practice along as I do, okay? So in the second part here, we got subtract 5, we subtract 5, so we get x is equal to negative 5. All right, so those are my 2 solutions for that problem. All right, example 4. We have x squared minus 14x plus 45, okay? So again, we have factors of a positive 45 that add to a negative 14. All right, so now these factors have to add up to a negative, right? So the only way that 2 numbers can multiply to positive and add to a negative would be if they are both, that's right, negative. All right, so we can have negative 1 with a negative 45. We can have a negative 3 with a negative 15. Or we can have a negative 5 with a negative 9. All right, and again, these have to add up to negative 14, right? So the only pair that's going to do that for me is this negative 5 and that negative 9. All right, so that means I have x minus 5 times x minus 9 equals 0. Okay, so now I have to finish solving this, all right? So to do that, again, I'm going to use that zero product property. I'm going to set each one of these products equal to 0 and solve for both. So on this first one, right, we're going to add 5 to both sides, and we get x is equal to 5. Right here, we add 9 to both sides, and we get x is equal to 9. All right, again, we have two solutions here because it's x squared, right? If we have a squared term, we're going to get two solutions. All right, we got our last two examples here. We got numbers 5 and 6. All right, 5, we have x squared minus 4x minus 12. All right, again, we're going to find factors of negative 12 this time that add to a negative 4. Okay, so numbers that multiply to a negative that add to a negative. Okay, well, my factors of 12, right, are going to be 1 and 12. All right, but again, one of these need to be negative to get to multiply, right? We're going to have 2 and 6, or we're going to have 3 and 4. All right, and again, one of these need to be negative in order for them to add up to a negative 4. All right, and if it's going to add to a negative, that usually means my bigger number is going to be negative. So which one of these pairs adds to negative 4? Yep, 2 and negative 6 here, right? When we add those up, we get negative 4. So that is my winning pair, right? So that is my pair that's going to go into these parentheses. We have x plus 2 now times x minus 6 equals 0. All right, so now I'm ready to solve this. So now I can say x plus 2 equals 0, or I can say x minus 6 is equal to 0. All right, now I'm going to solve both, right? I'm going to subtract 2 here. We get x is equal to negative 2. And I'm going to add 6 here. And we get x is equal to positive 6. All right, we got one more problem to do. All right, we have x squared plus 4x minus 32. All right, so here we want to find factors of negative 32 that add to a positive 4. All right, so factors of 32 are going to be 1 and 32. We're going to have 2 and 16. And we're going to have 4 times 8. Again, if I don't remember all my factors, that's okay. Right, I want you referencing this factors chart. All right, so we find 32, which is down here at the bottom, right? And there you can see the 3 pairs of factors, factor pairs there. All right, so now that I listed them out, right, these have to add to a positive 4, right? So if we're going to add to a positive, that means, and multiply to a negative, that means my smaller number this time is going to be negative. All right, and my winning pair here that's going to give me a positive 4 is going to be this negative 4 with a positive 8. All right, so that means my factors are going to be x minus 4 times x plus 8. So now that I factored it and it's equal to 0, now I'm ready to solve this. All right, so now I can say that x minus 4 is equal to 0, or x plus 8 is equal to 0. And I can just solve these, right? These little one-step equations, right? I add 4 to both sides, so I can say x is equal to 4. And here I'm going to subtract 8 to both sides and get x is equal to negative 8. And then how we're going to use factoring to solve these quadratic equations.